Welcome to episode 14 of Share. This week we'll be showing you how we architect websites.
Our presentation is how we architect websites, and specifically for small to medium websites. I don't have a disclaimer in the deck, so I'll put a disclaimer out right now. This is not the process for every website. It's for smaller engagements, mainly brochureware with limited to small amounts of functionality, and it's also taking or it's also assuming that the teams, the client and customer teams, know what they want and know their audience. So it's about us kind of drawing information from them and then kind of creating our architecture around it. So with that said, what is information architecture? And there's a lot of definitions. The one I coined for local wisdom is basically understanding the business and the audience to draw out blueprints and build a great online experience. And basically there are these kind of three buckets, and just to keep in mind, it'll come together later on in the presentation how the definition turns into the process, or the over high level process at least. So to continue the conversation about what is information architecture, it's basically turning question into explanation. It's turning confusion into I know what I want to do type of thing for the audience, and basically organizing patterns and data to make the complex clear. So it's making something clear out of confusion. And that quote is by Richard Saul Wurman, who is the father of information architecture. This guy was an architect himself and wanted to switch hats into architecting information. Another thing of what information architecture is, it reflects the way people think. So when you go into a website, the whole idea is to just mirror the experience with what the person would actually just do, what's intuitive for them to do. And it's also the foundation for others to kind of do their jobs better or supplement their jobs. For example, marketers use this, communicators use this, writers will use our architecture to write, designers will design around it, developers will use it as a foundation for development, programmers will use it as specifications to the functionality, and upper management will look at it and say, haha, you guys are crazy. But not really. Upper management will look at it, to have a high level viewpoint of what this real abstract thing is that we're creating. And actually, that's a point to make. And actually, I'll go back up real quick to the previous slides. This thing, the whole idea of a website is very abstract. At the end of the day, you can't touch it. You can't. It's not something that you could pick up and look around. So creating something that's abstract is even more abstracted type of thing. So it really gets confusing, and there's a lot of complexity, and what the overall goal is to make it simplified and understandable, digestible. So let me zoom back out. And the other concept is basically, since creating a website, since all the different elements that go into creating a website are all costly. It costs money for people to write, it costs money for people to design, it costs money for people to develop. So instead of just kind of rushing into it, we want to get this consensus so that when we do it, it's not, we don't have to go back and oh, well, I thought you meant this and I thought you meant that type of thing. So it's really about bringing these conversations up front and using those conversations as a basis for what we're building on top of. And this is how a normal local wisdom conversation goes, so you know. And I know what you're thinking. Wow, that sounds complicated. And it sort of is, just like I said, in this real abstracted form. But I'm looking to bring it together, and hopefully after the end of this meeting, it's less complicated and more understandable. But for the most part, information architecture is a series of brainstorms, documents, and reviews that evolve these abstract concepts into a defined structure. The brainstorms, documents, and reviews are kind of key things that we do throughout the whole IA process. So I'm going to go through those three individually right now. So first we'll talk about brainstorms. And brainstorms are specifically sessions, meetings that consist of discussions and exercises to start talking about these abstract things. And the idea is to then be able to take that abstraction and use documents to kind of make it structured. And as far as documents, we have a whole plethora of documents to help do this. But mainly they're all lists, diagrams, and charts that help us to see and visualize the website before we even begin designing, writing, or anything like that. So I'll go through some of the documents that we go over. And the first one is a goals document. And the idea is let's all agree on what we're all trying to do before we set out to build it. And it's important to have, the customers in the room, and it's important to have anybody who's having input or approving in on this meeting to understand, to agree on that this is, we're going after A, B, and C and not D, E, and F. Basically, we need to figure out what we're aiming for. And some of the ways that this looks are basically it turns into normal slides with bullet points that pretty much end up having a set of goals, and those goals end up becoming categorized in different ways. And these are some examples of how we've done it in the past. So the next document is audience or audience analysis. And here we're basically doing three things. One, we want to identify who are we talking to. It's one of the major important pieces of any communications item. If you don't know who you're talking to, you're not going to be able to really communicate with them. So beyond that, we want to describe them. We want to describe what are they like, what's their situation, and what's their deal. What do they want to do at the end of the day? What are we trying to solve for them? And then at the end, we want to understand their journey from where they are to where they want to be. So, in many instances, just like how I said earlier, good IA reflects the thought patterns of their audience. We want to understand what is that, what do they have to do to reach where they need to go. And then later on in content area, we'll then start to identify things to help them along their journey. But we'll get there in a second. So as far as the